Hello, I'm Michael Redmond, professional 9-dango player. In this video, I will look at one more game from the 60-game challenge match between Yasui Sanchi and Honinbo Doetsu. There will be a link for the other video about this match in the video description. So I'm showing a position, which is a variation of the game, in which white can capture some black stones on the top side. So the question is, how does white play to win the Semeai? So now I'll introduce the game. Honinbo Doetsu was the third Honinbo, and he was a 7-dan. Yasui Sanchi was the second Yasui, and he was the Meijin, which equals a 9-dan. So the 2-rank difference meant a 1-stone handicap, and Doetsu had to play with black. In a previous video I showed the 11th game of the match, which showcased Sanchi's fighting skills. In this video we shall see Doetsu using positional play and some beautiful shape moves to dodge Sanchi's attacks. This was the 17th game, and after 16 games, Doetsu had 9 wins, 3 losses, and 4 jigos. So some sources say that the handicap changed to half a stone when Doetsu took a 6-game advantage. That would be sen-ai-sen, with Doetsu taking black in 2 out of every 3 games. There are 2 things I can say about that. Firstly, the norm was a 4-game advantage to change the handicap, so this larger number of 6 games gave Sanchi an advantage, as he would have won the challenge match if he had been able to keep the status quo, Josen, 1-stone handicap. Secondly, in the Honinbo school records, they were bitterly complaining that Sanchi refused to change the handicap. So it could be that a couple more games were played at the 1-stone handicap. Sanchi did finally play with black at the 19th game. Okay, starting the game. We're seeing Doetsu playing a lot of mokazushi here, the 5-3 point. And there's various reasons he might be doing that, just to go back a couple of moves. One of the reasons is when white plays a kakari here, and let's say black plays away somewhere, and white plays a pincer, maybe one of these two. Doetsu did like to play 2 kakaris like this and then sort of leave them as a kind of bait, allowing white to dominate that side, eventually trying to make sabaki with the black stones, while hoping to dominate the rest of the board. So that's one of the ideas that's shown here. In the whole series of games that were played between Honinbo Doetsu and Yasui Sanchi, this was one of the favorite openings that Honinbo Doetsu played. In this game, we see white playing a separate corner, which is a bit unusual in the play of these 2 players, so maybe white's trying something a bit different. And Honinbo Doetsu continues to play mokazushi here. So he's played a mokazushi in every corner. And people say that Honinbo Doetsu was being supported or helped by his pupil, Honinbo Dosaku, that is. So Honinbo Dosaku was already one of the top players at the time, and after this match he actually becomes the Honinbo house leader, and at the same time he became the Meijin. So he was very close to becoming the dominant player of this era, and he did have some opening ideas that centered around playing the mokazushi. So it could be that we're seeing some of Dosaku's opening, kind of a preview of Dosaku's opening here, because I think the support that he was giving Doetsu was basically opening strategies or ideas. There's also the fact that it seems Doetsu must have known that Yasui Sanchi didn't really like to have low positions. So, for instance, in modern Go, it would be pretty normal for white to be diving into the 3-3 point or the 3-4 point. So especially the 3-3 point would be an unusual move at the time of this game, but the 3-4 point could be played. It's just that Yasui Sanchi did not like the low position that white gets in this joseki. Incidentally, this is modern AIs sort of agree with that, although they would be diving into the corner in this position. So since Doetsu knows that Sanchi will avoid that, and probably is going to play a high kakari like this, it means that he gets the surround the corner territory anyway. And Doetsu's strategy did involve taking territory and getting a territorial advantage. So he does want to take the corner, and it seems maybe he's found a very efficient way of doing it with just one stone, because he knows that Yasui Sanchi is not going to dive in. So that was just my theory there, but it could be. White plays a distant pincer, which is going to link up to that Kakari at Q15. Black plays a Semeai here. And again, white did not want to play deeply here because he didn't want that low shape that white would be getting in this position. Okay, so white plays a pincer. And again, we see two corners in which white has played a pincer. And for the time being, black is going to leave those stones. So black starts with the lower side. And if white had continued with, I guess this would be the normal modern move, and black would probably play some kind of extension here. So black would be building in the lower left area with two wings to that moyo there, which is a common idea. So I don't know. The next move is maybe a bit difficult. I would probably play something like this, looking at Semeai in the corner. There's Semeai at B17 and stuff. So instead, white played here. So you can see white taking the left side. Although it's a low position, if black presses immediately here, I would expect Yasui Sanchi to push through and cut. In fact, I would do that myself with the pincer at H17, and white pushing through the cut here it's a joseki, so it's not unusual. And with that stone at C10, white probably has a local advantage. So black avoided that and played here. This was actually a popular joseki at the time, and black is eventually aiming to press at D15. So, for instance, for the time being, black is putting pressure on that white stone on the side. So black play at D10 or C11 would be very effective. So white crawls, black jumps, and if white continues on the left side, so for instance something like this, black might or might not play this Atari, but black would press here. And now black doesn't have to worry about the cutting point because, well, white's going to connect up on the left side, but if white pushes through and cuts here, this is going to be really bad. Obviously good for black. So white's not going to do that, but this is the idea. So white played a Kosumi here, and this was the joseki move. White is threatening to press at F16. Black moves out. So in a way, black is going to emphasize the fight on the top side, the coming fight on the top side, more than the left side. That's because white's group in the corner is fairly strong already, so black wants to attack white on the top side more than fighting on the left side. So at this point, if white played something like this, for instance, or something like this, white would be able to surround the left side. This would be one way of surrounding the left side. White would be connected up because if black covers here, there are two cutting points, so this is not going to work for black. But black would be able to continue on the top side, maybe some kind of a pincer like this. And with the slide at C18, the black group on the left is fairly strong. And black stones on the left side of the board, these two stones, they've been exchanged for two white stones on the third line, so they can be discarded later as the game progresses. So instead of doing that, white played in the corner. So this strengthens the corner group. It gives it a living shape. So white's alive in the corner, and because the group in the corner is alive, white doesn't have to connect up to the two groups on the side. So the white two stones on the left side, they're going to have to fend for themselves. But because white's strong in the corner, it's just the one group, so it should be okay. And it's putting more pressure on this black group here. So the black group on the top side, now it has more trouble making a base, which means that the coming fight on the top side is going to be more even. Instead of trying to attack immediately, black started with the left side, so creating another weak white group. And in this case, black's going to try to save the group on the left side too. So black has two weak groups, which are going to move out into the center. And for the time being, white's dealing with this group, but doesn't want to allow black to link up in the center. So at this point, white cuts black off, black curls around, So black is focused on making this group on the left side strong. At this point, it's got good shape out in the center. So the black group is strong. Threatening to play here next, which would put a lot of pressure on the white group. So the white group doesn't really have eye space yet. And in the game, white avoided that by jumping here. So now white has something like eye space. So black plays a pincer on the top side, but also white has that stone at d17, which I've marked, taking away black space. And white plays an attachment here. And black bumped against white, cutting white's connection and creating a Semeai on the top side. At which point, I think black's idea was to sacrifice some stones on the left, getting position on the outside. It didn't pan out that way, but I think that was the original idea. If white had played here, then white would have been connected out, and it would have continued to be a running fight. So if we say then that black plays here, and we say white plays here, this would continue the fight. In this fight, we don't really know if black is going to save that stone at k3, so k17 that is. So if white plays here, black might be playing here, with ideas to sacrifice it on a small scale and have an advantage on the rest of the board. So this might be a way to cool down the fight here. And I'd say that this move is trying to make that stone heavy. So if black pulls back, then white can play here. In which case, it would be a larger target. So when there's two stones there, black has invested this stone at L17, means that black probably has to save the group, and it would heat the fight up, with black's group on the left not being alive yet. So this fight would be more heated up, and instead black bumped against white. If white covers here, black's going to have a local advantage because black's connected out, so 2 is a very efficient move. And this would win the Semeai. So that would finish that. And if white goes down here, it's pretty hopeless for white. So white's not going to do that, and instead extend it here. So it's a Semeai, and this is the shape move. Black played here. White played here. So this is the, up to this point, it's the game variation. And this is where we're going to look at the little problem that I showed you at the beginning of the video, where if white plays here, black connects. This Hane, it's generally forcing, so black covers, and we get to this shape, which is Semeai, and how for white to win. So if you want to figure this one out for yourself, you can pause the video because I'm about to show the answer. So there's an idea of Meijin Minashi, which is the Japanese phrase for an eye against no eye. And the group with the eye wins the Semeai, or that's what the saying goes, the way it goes. In order for this to function, you need at least one inside dame. So for instance, just making an eye doesn't always work. This would be an example of white making an eye and losing the Semeai, because problem is that there's no inside dame. So white doesn't really want that stone at 1, filling the inside dame there. So instead of playing at 1, white plays here, threatening a snapback at f17, so black has to connect. And here we see an inside dame at g17, which is going to be advantageous for white. So white plays the Hanetsugi at 3. The Hane on the first line is a key point. And at this point, black has 2 liberties, but has no way to fill white's liberties efficiently. So obviously this would be bad because black's running out of liberties. Black can't play from this side either because he still can't play at g17. So it's basically a choice of j19 or h19. Black plays at j19. Oh, this is Atari. So white's 1 move ahead. And if black plays here, this is where the idea of Meijin Minashi comes in, where white gets an eye here. And because black's eye is a false eye, there's no way for black to fill a white's liberty. If white wants to take those stones off the board, white can eventually play at c19 and then d19 and capture at e18. So white has a way of capturing the black stones while black has no way to proceed. So that would just be a dead black group. Okay, so that's the way to win the Semeai, playing the key point here, threatening a snapback, and then playing at f19. Back to the game. There are some issues with the order of moves here. So it would have been a simpler variation if white had started with the hane here, which is generally forcing. If white plays there, crawling at k18 is a very strong move with the cutting point at j14 and so on. So black will probably answer that, and now white can win the Semeai, regardless of whether black plays that hane there. So if black plays here, this is going to revert to the variation we were just looking at, where white's going to win. So when white plays here, black actually has to give up those stones and is probably going to sacrifice the group, and black is going to play here, and white can capture everything with this. So white's keeping the win of the Semeai here with 7, and black will just play away, because if black plays locally, this would be the move, but it would still be this thing where black is 1 move behind. Okay, so white wins by 1 move. White didn't play that move at j18 and started with this. So it's slightly different when black plays here. So that in the game, white played on the outside and black traded to the corner, making an unusual trade here. So that was interesting. And the thing is, if white plays here, it's going to be a different variation. So in this case, if black plays here and white plays here, this will revert to the Semeai that white wins. So this is always the main line of the variation. But turns out that black has a good move at this point. Again, you can pause the video if you want to figure it out, but I'm about to give the answer. It's actually going to be one of my favorite Tesujis, the stone pillar, the sekito shibori, or the stone pillar squeeze. So black starts with this. And if white plays here, black's going to extend down to the first line, starting to make the sekito shape. So if white captures the 1 stone here, of course, black can connect underneath. The fun variation is when white goes after the 2 stones. At this point, black has to make the eye at e16. And white can try to crawl. But black does have 2 extra lures at d16 and e15, which give black a 1 move advantage here. And so black could have used the sekito shibori to save this group. So that's where we see white playing this cut here. If black extends, white would probably continue with this, starting to make some threats on the outside. And if black covers here, this would revert to the variation where white wins the Semeai. So black plays away here and lives in the corner. So this is sort of a lie in the corner. Like there's some potential for a call, but it's generally going to be a lie. And white captures the 1 stone. So this was a trade. White did get something on the outside, so it's not a complete loss for white. But I will go back to say that if white had started with the hane here, it would have been a simpler variation, in which case white would have won the Semeai. So in this variation, white's winning the Semeai, and black would have to sacrifice the group. Not to say that this is a loss for black, but it's probably a better variation for white than the game. So black got this opportunity to live in the corner, and he curls around here. So this is an interesting, subtly aggressive move. So this is where it might seem reasonable for black to play something on the top side, something like this, for instance, just because this would make a territory on the top side, but it would be very passive. So instead of doing something like that, black curls around here, putting pressure on white's area on the right side. So in some cases, black might even be looking at an invasion here. It's important that the move at s15 is taking away white's space. So he's putting pressure on white. It's a big move as far as territory is concerned. And he's inviting white to try to attack the top side. He's not really all that worried about it. In this fight, again, the stone at s15 reinforces the corner. So there's not much chance for white to attack black's group in the corner either. So he's not worried about that group on the top side. And it turns out that in this fight, both sides have a weak group. So it's not a problem for black. Okay. So black's still putting pressure on the whole white group, and it's hard to say who is attacking in this variation. Okay, so this is an interesting position where white plays the passive move. White could have cut here, and that might have been slightly better, but there is a lot of bad aji associated with that. For the time being, black's probably going to play something in the center. And eventually something like this might happen, where black would sort of link up in the center, and white would probably have to do something about that group on the top side. So eventually white's going to have to capture G16 or something like that. Okay, so now white is trying to make the lower right. This is the last big area for white, so it's an important area. This was threatening the peep at Q13, Q12 that is. And when white connected, black linked up. So this is making a loose connection for this thing here. So the cut here is defending the cut while linking up to the left. So at this point, black's group on the top side is strong enough. It's alive, you might say. The group in the top left corner is alive. White's group on the top side, it's probably not weak, but if black does connect at G16, there will be some issues with making two eyes. So there's some aji there. It's probably not so serious. And white is building in the lower right. So a lot depends on what happens in the lower right here. This is where we're going to see some beautiful Tesuji sequence played by Honinbo Doetsu. So that's white's areas. White doesn't really have very much territory apart from this area in the lower right. Black has a number of small areas. So black does have some territory in the top left and top right. So the top right is a bit more than 10 points, and the top left is a bit less than 10 points. So that adds up to being about 20 points. And then there's this area on the bottom side. So this area here, we don't really know if this is everything is going to be black's territory yet. In some cases, black can threaten the white group on the left side a little bit while surrounding this territory. So that will be the final stage of the game. Before black does that, black sort of wants to accomplish something in the lower right corner. So that's going to be the last fight of the game, where black starts with this move. So white covers, and now black plays here. So this is actually the Tsuke and the double hane, a sequence we see a lot in modern Go. Actually, so if we go back to the original shape where white has played a pincer and a kosumi, this combination of the pincer and the kosumi is seen a lot in modern Go, post-AI Go. So it's sort of relevant to what we do nowadays. And the most common move that we find suggested by AI is actually, in many cases, it's this attachment in the double hane. So if white plays an Atari on the outside, black will connect. In this case, black doesn't have room to make two eyes on the side, but black does have this forcing move at 4. And black would be able to jump out, leaving a potential connection on the side. So in the game, white plays here. And black jumps out at this point. So this looks sort of like a crazy move, but it's actually a very beautiful Tesuji, where black is making use of daji at Q2. The cut on the second line is forcing. It means that if white tries to cut black off here, it's going to link up to that cut, where white has a lot of cutting points, something like this. This would be a collapse for white, because white cannot cut the black group off. If white plays here like this. So this would be a win for black. And there's some other variations. So like in this variation, in this case, black might actually just sacrifice the stone. So it would be a big move to play here and get something in the center in return. Although this is still a Tesuji. So there's still the idea of playing here. And probably here. So this would be threatening the 6 stones in the center. And black would be able to play here and make a living shape. So Variations like this are feasible, although it's probably easier for black just to sacrifice it at this point. Black would be getting something back in the center, would be good enough to keep black in the lead in this game. So this looks very loose, but it's actually out in the center, and there's some aji with the cut on the second line, and white extended. So it becomes very difficult for white to continue attacking here, because black is still threatening the cut on the second line, and is now connected out. Black erased the right side, and white's territory is mostly disappeared. White has more than 10 points in the corner, and about 10 points on the right side, and then some small territories. So everything depends on how black can settle this final position here, which is just a little bit weak right now, because black's group on the right here is right next to a very strong white group, and it doesn't have a base yet. So making a solid connection to this black group on the right is important, but black starts with an attack against white's group on the left. So if white were to play here, I would assume black would play here, and white is not 100% alive. It's not as if it's going to die easily, and black would probably continue with something like this, surrounding the bottom side first, and keeping some possibilities to attack white on the left side. In the game, white pushed out, and black surrounded the bottom side. So with this, the game is almost ready to enter the end game. The bottom side has become black's territory probably, and everything is pretty much settled. So it's becoming an end game, and black does have a lead in territory. Partly because white's group on the left is not 100% alive, white does have to play fairly passively here. So this is going to allow black to complete the surrounding of the bottom side. And when white played here, black can actually save this group. So black could play, for instance, this would save it, something like this. And white's going to continue the attack here in the center. So with some potential weak groups on the top side and the left side of the board, this could get a bit complicated. So this is where black decided to sacrifice the right side. He's going to attack a little bit first. And with this, white has a living shape. So it's interesting to question what happens if black plays here. White has a way to make two eyes. So it's a little Honinbo thing here. So if you want to work it out, you can pause the video. I'm about to show the answer. So white plays here, and B10 and C9 become Meijin. So if black plays here, white plays here. In this case, white would have an eye at C8. So like this. So this would be an eye and another eye on the left side. If black plays here, white can play here. In this case, white has an eye at B11, and capturing the two black stones, white has another eye there. So that would be another way white lives. So in the game, black just doesn't do that and switches to the top side. So black's going to sacrifice the stones on the right just because he has enough territory to be able to do that, and he's probably going to get something back in the center. But the bottom side was big too. So with this, black has finished the bottom side, and we're finally into an end game now. So the games between these two players, the end games are very exact. They're very precise. Similar, maybe even more precise than most modern games, because there was no time control, and they were able to play very carefully here. This was an important match. It was a challenge match to decide Meijin. Sanchi was the Meijin at the time, but Honinbo Doetsu had challenged that. So it was a very important challenge match and very exact, precise endgame. So we're going to see that just to follow the endgame moves. I'm not going to be commenting very much at this point. We'll just watch them play the game. So black's group on the left, it can connect up with a black stone here. So this would link up to the center, or black can push through here. So because of those 2 points, the black group on the left side is actually safe enough. And they're in the final stages of the endgame. And we do see that black got several points in the center in return for sacrificing that group on the right side in the lower right corner. So he did establish a connection out, but could afford to sacrifice the stones after all. So there's this few points in the center here that black got. Maybe more importantly, he got an opportunity to finish off this area on the lower side. So the game ended, and black won by 9 points. At this point, Doetsu had won 10 games out of 17 games, so that's 10 wins, 3 losses, and 4 jigos. And it's starting to get embarrassing for Yasui Sanchi. So actually, they started this match at the end of 1668, and then they were supposed to play 10 games a year for 6 years. So they started in earnest in 1669. And they did play about 10 games in the first year, in 1669. And then it slowed down because Yasui Sanchi, it became difficult for him to continue playing. He was in trouble in the match. And eventually it did take them about, actually a bit more than 6 years. They went on to 1675. And they only played 20 games. So the match slowed down a great deal. And eventually Doetsu had 12 wins and 4 losses and 4 jigo. Yasui Sanchi, he gave up the Meijin, and so Honinbo Doetsu won the match. It was supposed to be a 60-game match, but it ended up just being 20 games. Honinbo Doetsu did not have to be banished to a remote island, but he did retire after the match. So he was still fairly young. I think he was in his 30s still. He retired partly because the next Honinbo Dosaku was already so strong, but also he felt that he had insulted the Bakufu, the government, by challenging their decision to make Yasui Sanchi the Meijin, and so he took that as an opportunity to retire. So that's it for this game. After this, I'll be continuing my Golden Era series with games played by Honinbo Dosaku, who's going to dominate the Go world after this. So I'll be back. Thank you.